Now, if you had to guess, which one do you think will come out first? Blood of the Dawnwalker or Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2? Now, bear in mind that Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was announced 5 years ago and still hasn't come out, or Blood of the Dawnwalker from a new studio based on the people who made Cyberpunk 2077 and also announced it, I'm going to say, something around 10 years before it actually came out. My money, actually, legitimately, on Blood of the Dawnwalker. I know, it's perhaps ridiculous because CDProjektRed is quite well known for, let's call them, delays. But I think the studio craziness in terms of the development of Bloodlines 2 is so completely bananas that I'm not actually sure it will ever come out. Now, that might be good, that might be bad. The good for that would be it does not tarnish the legacy of Bloodlines, which is one of my favorite games. It's one of my, probably my most replayed games of all time. I love it. I love the ambiance of it. I love the mythology of the World of Darkness. And I love that the game actually does a good job of conveying all of that stuff. So, if the second Bloodlines game is terrible, it really kind of casts a pall over the entire Bloodlines series. Maybe not enormously, but something. It tarnishes the legacy, which I don't like. And the studio craziness is, up to and including literally firing the guy who is the reason we actually wanted Bloodlines 2. Brian Mitsoda was the guy who wrote the initial script, and I believe was like the creative director or just director of the game, Bloodlines. He was hired on as the creative narrative director for Bloodlines 2. And therefore, he would be the main script writer. There's also somebody, Chris Avalon, you might have known. I believe he wrote a couple quests and then came out after he was let go or fired or not paid. There was some shenanigans, chicanery with the studio. He came out and basically said, yeah, as far as I know, all of my stuff's been cut. He is a very well-respected video game writer who's done a ton of stuff in, let's think, Planescape Torment, a lot of, just an enormous amount of stuff. I can't name all of them, because I'm thinking like Pillars of Eternity. I'm thinking of Wasteland. He's just done, Fallout, tons of stuff. So he's let go. Apparently his stuff might have been cut, might not. We don't know. Brian Mitsoda, he's also fired. And then, of course, the entire studio is just dissolved. The entire studio is then, they're not moved around. It's basically given to an entirely new studio, the Chinese Room, which is responsible for Dear Esther, a walking simulator, which is okay, and Still Wakes the Deep, which is, again, a sort of like narrative horror, Lovecraftian walking simulator. That is also good, but both of these games are kind of different from the sort of more action-focused Bloodlines 2 trailer that we've gotten. Now, it might not actually be that combat-heavy, but the action seems to be a large portion of, the game that was being made. And the Chinese Room doesn't seem to have a lot of experience in those kinds of systems. So they would have to potentially, relearn it, redo it. There are issues. Narratively, they might have a very strong vision of what that game might needs to be, and therefore the reason it's taken 5 years since the last announcement was because they're basically just redoing the entire game. That's a possibility. And if that's the case, and they were abandoning the vision of the people that made Bloodlines 1 really great, that does not bode well. Plus, again, it's been 5 years since, as far as I can tell, like any announcement's been made about this game, which is not good. So, Blood of the Dawnwalker, on the other hand, while still coming from CDProjektRed, well, not CDProjektRed, but people that were on CDProjektRed, Cyberpunk 2077, and The Witcher 3, it's a new studio. It's their only game, and therefore probably their main focus. And they need to get it out. They need to put this thing out to make their money. Because they don't have, good old games. They don't have GOG as their, Valve, Steam moneymaker. They basically need to make games. I will say the game looks really cool. I like the approach to vampires. I actually love the fact that we're kind of getting a sort of vampire resurgence with Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers movie, the Blood of the Dawnwalker, potentially Bloodlines 2, a sort of return to vampires as scary, nasty monsters that are perhaps, cool, but, they're horror creatures. As opposed to, sexy, glittery tweens. Which I also like, but I like there being a contrast. Like, you can go either way with it. So I think Blood of the Dawnwalker, while it might not be revolutionary, it does look super similar to The Witcher. Just aesthetically, it looks exactly. If you were to look at the king in the trailer of Blood of the Dawnwalker, he's literally straight out of The Witcher. If you look at the main character, right over there, if you look at the main character, pretty sure he looks pretty similar to a white-haired Witcher that we're all aware of. And therefore, I think they probably have a lot of the systems already kind of in their back pocket. I think they probably have a lot of their art assets. I think they probably have a lot of the things that would take a bunch of time to create if they were making something brand spanking new. They kind of already have a lot of that stuff ready to go. Now, will remain to be seen whether or not those systems translate well, whether the game will be any good. My bet is on yes. My bet, if I had to guess, let's say they came out on the same day. They're both released the exact same day, Bloodlines 2 and Blood of the Dawnwalker. My guess is Dawnwalker is going to be better. My guess is that's going to be a more solid game, just because I really don't like all of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I hear about Bloodlines 2. It makes me think they're going to abandon the RPG story focus, and they're going to move into, this is an action schlockfest, which is terrible and would be an awful game. Very similar to the Werewolf the Apocalypse game, which I was kind of excited for, but was one of the worst games I've ever played. It was unplayably horrible. And really, I think that's poisoned the well for any spin-off World of Darkness games that are not Vampire the Masquerade. So say goodbye to Werewolf the Apocalypse games. Say goodbye to Mage of the Ascension, Mage of the Awakening, Werewolf the Forsaken, Changeling, The Lost, Changeling, The Dreaming, Demon the Fallen. It's not happening. They're gone. They're done. It's Vampire the Masquerade or bust. That's it. It's the only stuff you're getting. And even the sort of visual novels that they've put out, the Werewolf the Apocalypse one was terrible. It just looks visually really, really, really bad, and is, again, it abandons the free-form RPG elements that make the World of Darkness an appealing property for a video game. So, Blood of the Dawnwalker, probably going to come out first. Blood of the Dawnwalker, probably going to be the better game. Now, whenever these things do come out, please remember to revisit this video and tell me if I'm right or wrong. With that being said, good luck in all your endeavors. Thank you very much for your time and attention. And I shall say farewell for now.